Huge news as it pertains to the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, as reported by Michael Silver and Diana Rossini from The Athletic. And the news is this, that the 49ers have voided the future guaranteed money for Brandon Aiyuk. And so what that means is, we kind of thought that, there was some weirdness going on, and what was the future of Brandon Aiyuk, but that albatross that was kind of hanging over was the future guaranteed money. Now the 49ers do not owe that money. And as reported by Silver and Rossini, Brandon Aiyuk has decided not to fight it through the NFLPA. My sources told me that this was actually a move done by the 49ers during training camp. That's when they voided the contract for Brandon Aiyuk. And the reason for the being able to void the contract would be that he didn't live up to the terms of the contract that he signed in August of 2024. Big contract extension, averaging $30 million a year. And of course, seventh game of the season, he sustains the ACL injury, the ACL, the MCL, meniscus, cartilage as well. And he started training camp on the PUP list, and according to sources, wasn't fulfilling the obligations that a injured player must fulfill. And the 49ers some time ago voided this contract. And I guess the question that some of you might be asking is, why is this only coming to light now if the contract was voided in training camp? And from what I can gather, when something like that is filed, I've talked to agents around the league, and what I'm told is that if something like that is filed, it's basically between the team and the player and the player's agent. And so, there's no paper trail where other people around the league can see what's happened. But sources have confirmed to me the Silver and Rossini report. And so what does that mean? When you think about why the 49ers, or how the 49ers could part ways with Brandon Aiyuk after this season, this is it. No more guaranteed money would be earmarked toward him. He would not have any more guaranteed money, which would make it very simple for the 49ers to release him with no strings attached and not owe him any more money. So Brandon Aiyuk remains on the PUP list. It's been basically a weekly ritual asking Kyle Shanahan, is this the week that Brandon Aiyuk is elevated, or they have the practice window open for him? And the answer every week, for the past 4 weeks, has been no, not this week. And so there really is no opening in sight. And, I think it's something where I think as time went on, you could tell that there was something going on behind the scenes. And I know Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, actually, a lot of times on his KBR radio show, when asked about Brandon Aiyuk, he said, he was doing all the right things. Well, quite clearly, he wasn't doing all the right things as far as the rehabilitation. Obviously, the 49ers didn't want that news out there to get, at this point, as far as the voiding of the contract, because that's kind of a nuclear option when it comes for teams and players. And especially when you have Aiyuk, who signed this big money deal, and now quite clearly he is not in line to get only a fraction of what it was that the 49ers originally signed on for. I don't have those exact numbers in front of me, but I do know that the guarantee for next season was up around $27 million. And so that's money that is no longer guaranteed, and the 49ers will no longer be obligated to pay Aiyuk, assuming, of course, that there's no kind of appeal, which the Athletic reports he's not inclined to appeal this or take it as far as any kind of arbitration or anything of that nature. So Brandon Aiyuk, again, remains on the physically unable to perform list. We saw him in training camp out there with the wide receivers doing stuff that he wasn't even allowed to do as far as getting on the field and running. I know that There's video of him as he was running routes before the game in Las Vegas. Again, something that he wasn't allowed to do. A source told me that was basically the only time they saw him working out. Now, I do know that he has been coming to the facility. I don't know if it's every day, but he hasn't been. I know that there were a lot of fines for not fulfilling the requirements of a player under contract. So that's where it is. The union between Aiyuk and the 49ers will be coming to an end. It certainly appears. It doesn't appear as if the 49ers are want to bend over backward to try to keep this thing going for the 2026 season. So, is it a surprise? I think we all sensed. I think you could probably sense that. Yeah, like I said, there was just something amiss, and there was never any real guarantee that Brandon Aiyuk would be on the team next year. The only question was, how was that going to look? Would they be able to trade him? Probably not. How were they going to proceed forward? And now we know. And so when you look at the 49ers wide receiver position, it's very much up in the air for the future. When you think about Ricky Pearsall, he is signed for 2 more years after this year. Jordan Watkins is a rookie, so he signed for 3 more years. Jacob Cowing, who we haven't seen this year, he's on injured reserve. We haven't seen him. He is signed for 2 more years after this year. And then there's Kendrick Bourne, who's a free agent at the end of the season. Juwan Jennings, a free agent at the end of the season. At the end of the season, Demarcus Robinson, who signed a 2-year contract. What will his future be as well? But it does appear now with the reporting of Silver and Rossini that a definite split is in the works between Aiyuk and the 49ers. And so it doesn't necessarily rule out a return for Aiyuk this year, although now that seems highly unlikely. I was told that the 49ers would be open for him if he wants to play and he feels like he's recovered enough to get out there. They would be open for him to get out there and play, especially if he's at anywhere near the form of the Brandon Aiyuk we saw during the 2023 season. But is that realistic? I don't know. It doesn't sound that way. I guess the question would be, from the 49ers standpoint, is he at this point, with his contract voided, is he going to press it to get out there and try to help the team? That's one consideration. But the other part for Brandon Aiyuk would be that, would he want to get out there for the final several weeks of the season to show the rest of the NFL that he can still play and that he's worth an investment of some team going out and signing him as a free agent, assuming, of course, which is the realistic assumption at this point, that he will be a free agent, that after the season is over, the 49ers will release him. They will cut ties. They won't owe him another penny. And so you would think of it, you can look at it from both of the ways. Whereas if he has done the stuff where the 49ers felt obligated or felt compelled to not, or to void his contract because he hasn't been fulfilling his contract, would they feel comfortable in him going out there and playing for the organization? But from Aiyuk's part, he would have to be upset with the team that they're basically signaling that they're cutting ties with him. But there becomes a point where it would actually help him if he were to help the team. If he could at all get out there for a few games, potentially even playoff games, and play good football, then that's going to make him more attractive on the open market as a free agent. But that'll be something that I know, every every week from this point forward, the question will be to Kyle Shanahan: is this the week that Brandon Aiyuk is um, has his practice window open? Could he become available? But so I would say, while the short term situation with Aiyuk is a little bit murky, I think the long term situation is very crystal clear. The short term is there is still a chance, possibly, that he could play this season. You might think that's unlikely, and it probably is. But then I think for the long term, there's virtually no chance that Brandon Aiyuk is with the 49ers in 2026 and beyond. So that's the update. Compliments on the good reporting and the story from Rossini and Silver from The Athletic. And that's my quick uh, 2 cents on where this thing is headed. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more about this in the coming days, as Kyle Shanahan will speak to the media on Saturday, and we'll certainly be interested to hear what he has to say on this topic. But by all accounts, the guaranteed money no longer in Brandon Aiyuk's contract, which basically paves the way for this union to not continue only less than a year and a half after he signed that huge, lucrative, big money contract to remain with the team. So that is the Aiyuk and 49ers update, and that is it for now.